So Hare Krishna, welcome all you guys for the verse 8 of the Bhagavad Gītā memorization course, workshop, team, camp. How's everybody doing? We have David Stallings is a new to the crew. Welcome. Where are you coming in from?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour west of Philly.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
We got Kylie Brown. Where are you coming in from, Kylie?
Hare Krishna. I'm in Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
I've got two Atlanta stories, and I think I'll share them, but maybe a little while into it. But yeah, I got two cool Atlanta stories. Welcome, Jai, and we got Shakshi Gopal here. We got Lilavati. Hey, Bo. We got Veda. We got Bali, who just led the kirtan. And usually we have just a few more. I'm going to log off of this Facebook kirtan thing, and then I'm going to broadcast from the Zoom. So bye-bye this video on Facebook, and I'm going to open this one up. Anybody wants to watch there? Kamal Nayan is watching. Okay, let's see. And I think I gotta close the window because it will open up and do an echo. 1 second.
Is it possible that there are people still at the Sweet Baby Krishna reading?
Oh yeah. Remember this morning you said there's a competition going on. It's not a competition, but it is a competition, and I'm not going to win that competition. Definitely not. Raghunath has a lot more spiritual value and entertainment value, but we got something good going on here too. So thanks for being here. How's everybody's practice? Matthew, how's your verse practice going on? Do you want to recite verse 1 and see how far you can get?
I could read along with the text in front of me. My practice has been lacking because I'm in the middle of the trial, and so
Yes.
I've not been practicing.
All right, well, all this stuff will be helpful for you. So today we're on a very essential verse, verse 8. This is a verse that you're going to hear. Can you pass me one? Yeah, man. Verse 8 already. we do two a week. Yeah, it's been a while. No, 2 verses a week. These guys are sweating here. So this is heading right into the reincarnation verse. Were you here last Saturday, Matthew?
I was.
Do you
Yes.
remember what verse 7 was about?
I do.
Some of the words.
Reincarnation. Reincarnation.
Reincarnation. Yes, the verse goes. Meveim vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manasastandri injiyani prakritishtani karshati. So mama, my anshas, my parts, are the jivas, the souls, and they are eternally parts like that. Someone is at the door. Sharidam ya jiva bhuta sanatana manasastandri injiyani, and they're struggling in this world with the 6 senses and the mind. What's the 6th sense? Which includes the mind, actually. So the 6th sense is what?
The 6 senses: sight, hearing, touch. Should I continue, or
Yes.
let others
And then
jump
there's
in?
the mind. Mind is
Mind.
all the senses are grouped about the mind, and the mind's function is accepting and rejecting. The senses just see an object, but the mind says, I like blueberry cheesecake. Yes, I like it. So and then the intelligence is behind the mind. The intelligence is, you have diabetes. No. 3 slices is enough. So the senses just observe an object. The mind says, I like it or I don't like it. And the intelligence is behind that, which is, we can be hopefully directed by a healthy spiritual intelligence, or we can just be controlled by our mind, manorathena, driven by the chariot of the mind. So this verse today is continuing on and is, I would just recite it. Shariram yat avapnoti yat chapi ukramatishvaraha grihitvethani samyati vair gandhani vashayat. So does anybody know what the word sharira means? Deva. Sharira vijajam. Sharira.
Body.
Do you remember like the first sentence of the English translation? No. This material body. Yes. Sharira means the body. Another word for body. Shariya ayat avapnoti. He gets. Yat ukramati. So there's different words here used for basically the same. They're basically the same word, but they're different Sanskrit words. Avapnoti, to get, and utkramati, to leave, to give up. Grihitvani, to get, and samyati, to give up. Those words have the same meaning. They're just being used in different parts of the sentence to refer to the different parts of the analogy. So the first part is saying we accept a body and give up a body, just like air carries an aroma from its source. We carry our different conceptions of life from one body to another. David Stallings, what does air smell like?
Air has no smell.
No smell, it's neutral. So if the air passes over Staten Island, what does it smell like?
It smells like Staten Island.
It smells like Staten Island, which is like kind of like a garbage dump, unfortunately. And if it passes over a rose garden, what does it smell like? It smells like
Rose garden.
So the air in this analogy, the vayu, how many of you heard that term before? Vayu, like there's the wind god, Vayu. He's the father of whom in the Ramayana? Who is he the father? Hanuman.
Hanuman.
Mahabharata, who's he the father of? Bhima, all the strong guys. Yeah, because wind is about that movement, strength. So Vayu, Gandhan. What is it? Anybody know this name Gandhi? What does it mean? Gandhi. Fragrance. Yeah, Gandhi. There's a beautiful verse. And we could also learn this verse one day because it's a really cool verse. Madhuram asya vibo madhuram gandhanam madhuram madhu gandhi mridu smitameta doho madhuram.
What about Ganga?
Nope.
No?
So the first line is madhuram asya vibo. Sweet is my sweet Lord's form. It's got 2 sweets. The next part of the verse is sweeter still is his face so fair. Madhuram vadanam madhuram. But his last one has 4 sweets. Madhu gandhi mridu smitam etadaho madhuram. But sweeter still, sweet is my sweet Lord's form. Sweeter still is his face so fair. But his honey-scented, gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. Yes, it is very sweet. And there's another song about Krishna. Everything is sweet about the Emperor of Sweetness. That's a cool one too. Very cool song. Does anyone remember how the line goes? Madhurastika.
Madhura Madhurepyo.
Madhure Bhupi, Madhure Mangalam.
Mangalepyopi Mangalam. Pavanam Pavanebhyopi.
No, that's Kevalastikam. That's
Kevala.
Kevalastikam.
Okay.
Maduram.
Adara Madaram. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
someone was singing it. Someone was singing them. Is that your wife singing it?
no, it's I think
It was me, sorry.
Kylie. So what is the first line?
Oh, I only know the refrain. Madhura Adipati Akilam Madhura.
So everything is sweet about the Emperor of Sweetness. That's a sweet one too. So here we're not talking about sweet. Sweet is the madhu and the honey is the mridu. But here is talking about the gandhi, the fragrance. So, and this verse is very simple, but it's very profound. It talks about like what is the subtle aspect of a flower, Shakshi? A subtle aspect of a flower. The scent, yeah. Yeah, then you've got the flower, it's like the gross side of it, and the subtle aspect of the flower. So here, when you leave your body, you carry with you your subtle senses. I actually, already having memorized this chapter years ago, I recently came up with a question that I didn't even notice before. I was like, okay, you leave your body, you leave your senses, don't you like your eyeballs are there, when you die, it's not like you take your eyeballs and your ears and everything with you. And in the next verse, it talks about like obtaining a type of ear, eyes, nose, touch, and sense of touch with all grouped around the mind. But it's also mentioned in a way that you're carrying these senses with you in some of the commentaries or some of the purports by the great Acharya. So it's like, what does that mean? Well, your senses aren't just your gross senses, you have your subtle senses. When you're asleep, do you ever see anything? Yeah, so that's your senses, your subtle senses. So you see through you have your subtle senses. So these are and those energies go out and connect with the gross senses and empower them. Yes. Mine is very subtle, even more subtle than the other senses. Yeah. Yes.
Once I spoke with a man who was blind, and he went blind as an adult.
Okay, we have Beta saying he has spoke to a man who's blind, who went blind as adult.
He went blind as an adult, so he remembered what it was like beside it, right?
Yeah.
And my point is that he told me that when he went blind, from then on, every time he dreamed, it was like the most vivid, realistic. He said he could see, and like all of his senses were working in his dreams.
He's saying his dreams became more vivid.
Right.
After he was no longer as
The subtle senses.
yeah. So you have subtle senses,
Right.
and so the ashayat is the what is this ashayat? What does that sound like? Asai, the fruit.
No, not asat.
Asat. Well, ashram, the container, the shelter. So whatever's containing the fragrance, so you got like a nice, fragrant candle. It's the thing that's holding the fragrance, kind of the gross part of it, and then you have the subtle aspect is the fragrance itself, and the wind is carrying it, but the wind actually doesn't have those qualities in itself. So similarly, the soul is not in the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, or the mode of material goodness, but it's carrying its different conceptions of life from one body to another. Like Ravi Shankar, Srila Prabhupada said, Ravi Shankar was playing sitar for 7 lifetimes. Yeah, he was working on. This is something this was a particular fragrance, something that he was interested in, that was carrying on was continuing on. Yes, Veda.
Was the Ravi incarnation the 7th incarnation?
I think that's the thing. That's the 7th one, yeah. So, like Mozart, what was he doing in his past life? What was his heart's beat? What was driving him?
Who?
Mozart.
Was driving him?
As a child, he was like a genius.
4 years old, he was composing symphonies.
Yes. What was
Previous
driving?
life, yeah.
Ah, yes.
He had organized Yeah,
Yes.
composer.
Yeah.
like music with genius.
So we're carrying these different conceptions of life from one body to another. This is very much in line with Matthew Seva's question on wisdom of the sages. How about what is the character of personality? What's our actual personality? Are we just neutral? Are we just not neutral, but are we just like like a generic soul? And then the only personality we have is that which is conditioned, that we're conditioned from the modes of nature, the things that we're in contact with this world. And I just remember the answer I gave. I don't remember all the details that Kastuba gave, but basically you have an actual identity that it's like you have a light bulb and you paint it blue or you paint it red. The original light has its own characteristics, and that is being covered or filtered and penetrated through going through the paint, and it's being expressed in a certain way. So luckily, we have a pure soul philosophy. Like for example, if you're a lot of times we hear this philosophy that the soul is inherently sinful. And if the soul is inherently sinful, then there's not really a point of like purification, like an ideal state, because you are just inherently bad. But if you're not inherently bad, if you're inherently pure, then there is a barometer. Okay, I'm not actually acting as myself. I'm being covered. I'm still carrying on these layers of identities and imperfections. So I need to peel off those paint layers of this light bulb so the real light of the soul can shine through. So the soul has its own particular nature and characteristic, its own likings and personality, but it's hard to discover when we are covered with so many different layers of paint. Like you go to like old New York City buildings and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 layers of paint covering the brick wall. So we are carrying this particular conditionings from one body to another, and that's kind of real basic point that's given here in this verse. Really nice point. Any reflections so far? Let's see, David Stallings, something you want to take home with you today. What is your doggy bag?
Well, can I ask a question about what you were just saying?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, is that more or less the concept of samskaras, or is that separate from what you're saying?
Yeah. Samskara. The word samskara is actually similar to the word scar. It's like it means an impression, something that's really. First, you have, I think, what is called vasanas, which is like a light impression, and when those culminate, they become a samskar, something that is really strongly imprinted upon the subtle body. So yeah, we have these different these samskaras that are kind of like people use this. What do people say now? Like generational, like I think Raghunathi says like, oh, my grandpa used to say, yell at the kids. And he said this, like, I feel like I gotta yell at them. Like, it's like a generational thing that we're driven to behave in a certain way. So we have these samskaras and that are driving us to react in certain ways.
But are they, and this question may be almost irrelevant, but are they the same as the senses that are coming with us, or are they something separate from?
I would think it seems to be more part of what is the manas, the mind, because the mind is that seat of like and dislike. And then buddhi, intelligence, which is particular type of intelligence, a kind of a way our intelligence is geared, particular type of conditioning. And then it all cultivates at the time of death, as you've probably seen the chapter 8, verse 6. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gītā, yam yam vapi smaran bhavan tajate ante kalevaram Matthew, do you remember what the word ante? Ante means? Nanto nachadi ante means like you have the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The first volumes are called the Adi Leela. Then you got the middle volumes are the Madhya Leela, and the last or the end is called Antya Leela. So Vedanta is the end. So whatever you're smaran, whatever you're thinking about at the time of death, ante, at the end, Sajate ante kalevam tam tamevate kunte sadatad bhava bhavita. That you will become. That you're going to. It's like you go to the grocery store, put everything in the basket, and then you go and that's what you pay for at the end. Or another example is when the bees take honey from so many different kinds of flowers, and those who have some expertise, they can taste. Oh, this is honey from these kind of flowers. It has a certain type of flavor to it, subtle, not very noticeable for maybe somebody like me. So the honey comes out as a result of all those previous nectars that are taken in. So we're getting a next body based on all those different desires, kama and karma. Kama and karma. Desire and deserve. Yeah. So like you may want to fly. That's your desire. Yeah. Okay. Well, you might just want to fly to Chicago. Okay. But then what do you deserve? Like what's your credit limit? It could be private jet or it could be Spirit Airlines, depending on your credit. Well, what's that? Is it like a titanium card or is it a gift card? So depending on the credit limit, that desire is manifested a certain way. So Mozart, he had this desire, and this was a strong desire that was cultivated, and then he somehow had that karma to see that desire express itself in a strong way. Like I might desire to play guitar, and I play like just a few chords, and that's how much my karma goes to. And I can do some austerities to like try to, called practice to expand that ability. So, Matthew, looks like Matthew.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one thing I wanted to add in what Kastuba said that I found very helpful to understanding, and it was something I hadn't previously that I'd been grappling with, was the idea that he put it as three things travel at the time of death: the Atma, the soul itself, the mind, the subtle, the mind, and then there will be some remembrance possibly, but also forgetfulness that's imposed by Krishna.
Yeah.
And the Paramatma, which he said doesn't really travel, but it's inherent in everything. And so the part that I was not understanding was, is it that karma moves with you? How does that all work? How is karma affecting you in a next life? And his explanation was that's part of the Paramatma. That's part of the, I think he put it as coding that's sort of inherent in the system.
Yeah, very nice.
And that, remember, that's how that affects you in the next life. So that was very helpful for me to clarify things that I had in a muddle.
Nice. Yeah, and that's like you see when people are in great suffering conditions, they consider, let me give up this body. But all the sufferings are contained within the mind. So if someone gives up their body, not gives up the body, when someone commits suicide, then they're basically in a situation. They're putting it out to Krishna, to the world, to nature itself, that I don't want a body. And so they're basically without a body, without a gross physical body. We got Carlos coming in. Let me just let him in. Welcome, Carlos. Oh, we got another chance. Was he waiting there for a while? I just saw that now. Welcome, Chance. No dance. Chance, welcome. Welcome,
Hello.
Carlos. We got David Stallings and Kylie Brown. And they can tell you all about. Okay, Kylie's going to tell you what the word Gandhi means.
Gandhi means a fragrance.
Fragrance. And David Stallings is going to tell you what the last word of the verse means, ashayat, which is similar to another word that we hear a lot.
Well, I remember it's similar to ashram, and it's like the vessel, you said.
Yeah. Got it. So the vessel is the body, or the vessel in this comparison is the body. The air in the analogy is the soul, and the fragrance are the different mental conceptions and impressions and karmas and subtle senses that are being carried from one body to another. And what were we saying right before we added Carlos? We're talking about not having a body, a ghost. So imagine you're renting a house and the landlord, for some reason says, comes over at 9 o'clock and says, get out now. He's got some thugs with some bats, some nails in the bats, some scary looking dudes. And that happened to the devotees in Bombay. They bought this huge property, this big piece of land, and then the guy hired some thugs and took their money and then tried to kick them off the land, so he could take possession of the land and then sell it to somebody else again. The Bombay temple. And then there's a whole new book that just came out about that. So imagine if that happened. If that happened, there's a there'll be likely, maybe even if you're especially in a different country or something, maybe you don't have a place to stay. Maybe you go without that house, without a home. You're just kind of wandering around. Now, if a landlord says, you got to get out in the end of the month or end of 3 months, you got to find somewhere else to be because I'm selling this house or whatever, then likely you're on your friend's couch or your auntie's house, you're somewhere, you've relocated somewhere. So when you go through that extended natural form of dying, just like birth takes time, death takes time, you're going through that situation, you're basically getting your next destination set up to where you're going to be. But if you get forced out in this, not a natural death of the body, but basically, kicked out of the house really quickly, then you can be in a situation where you're just wandering without a house. So you're a subtle body without a gross body. And it is very frustrating because it is the gross body where you can work out, try to satisfy various desires. The subtle body is full of the desires, but the gross body is where you can actually try to do something about it. So that's why ghosts are usually described to be frustrated beings because they can't do anything. They can't really interact, communicate. They can take somebody who has an unhealthy, subtle body. We got Alex entering in. So Alex is going to possess this Zoom body. He's coming, boo. Does anybody know the Sanskrit word for ghosts? Avinash? Bhuta. Bhuta. Yeah, I don't know, but that's the word for ghost in Sanskrit. Bhuta. So we're changing this body from one body to another. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of explanation today. We should start getting into our practice of it. So what I was going to say, just that the subtle body is our mind, our intelligence, and our false ego, and it's through the body that we get to act out, play out all these different desires. And so it can be a complete frustration for somebody who commits suicide because they're trying to escape the suffering, trying to escape the sufferings of this world, but they're actually prolonging their suffering, prolonging their their inability to address that suffering, because it's like really the body is where you can make some progress and changing things. I was just thinking the other day, like when you dream, you find that it's mostly manas, it's mostly mind, it's like desires. You don't have much intelligence in your dreams, isn't it? Because if you had intelligence, you'd be like, man, this stuff is a dream. This stuff's too, this is not real. I'm riding on a pink furry dragon. This ain't real. Like, your intelligence would be like, no, don't accept this stuff. But it's like, no, we're just like emotion, mostly very like a lot of emotions kind of driving the how it's going. And so, yeah, ghosts seem to be like very emotional. You easily get angry and things like that. Any comments or questions? Yeah, Shakshi's got a question.
He said that in a case where you wouldn't have a body is when you leave the body unnaturally.
Yeah.
Is suicide the only
Suicide, gunshot.
gunshot?
So you guys want to hear a little story of the ghost of John Lennon? Ray, put your hand up if you want to hear the story of the ghost of John Lennon. All right. Okay. So John Lennon, as you know, died in what would be unnatural death. He was forced out of his body. And George Harrison, as you know, he was friends with several of the devotees. He himself was, very devoted to Krishna, and he sang many songs about Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. There's one song, and there's an interview where he talks about all this. One song, it's the song, it's something in the way she moves, but he didn't want to put he moves because he didn't want the questions about his sexuality coming out. So he put something in the way she moves. He said it. This is a song about Krishna. And he said, Here Comes the Sun. This is a song about Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. In the interview where he talks about all this. So there's a lady named Mother Vidya. She lived in LA. I think she still spends like half her time in India and half her time in LA. And she is an astrologer. She's a very good astrologer and like a psychic person. I had her do my astrology years ago, and she said everything that I'm doing right now.
Oh, really?
So many years ago. She was in India, and she had this dream, or she said it was like a dream or a vision. It was where the ghost of John Lennon came to her and was complaining about George. He said, we did everything together. And now I'm suffering in this ghostly form. And what is he doing to help me? You should help me. He was like saying that. And so she went to talk to one of her friends. Her name is Rambaru. And you might see her. I imagine she's probably going to be a special guest on the show someday. She's a great speaker. So she talked to Rambaru, and Rambaru says, well, why don't you just tell George? He's upstairs. In 1996, George Harrison spent 3 months at the Prabhupada Vani Ashram, which was the house of Rambaru and Prithu Prabhu. But it was not advertised. Nobody knew. There's a lot, you can find pictures of it on the internet. Just type George Harrison and Vrindavan, and you'll see pictures of them at that house. And so she said, why don't you tell George? He's upstairs. And the lady almost fainted. She was just so shocked. So she went up to George and said, this is what happened. I have this dream where John Lennon, the ghost of John Lennon, is complaining that you need to help him and get out of this ghostly body, this situation of being a ghost. And it wasn't just her that had this dream of the ghostly dream of John Lennon. You know who else saw the ghost of John Lennon? Anybody know? Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury, in a BBC interview on his deathbed in the hospital, said the night that he caught AIDS, the night that he was with some fan, the ghost of John Lennon burst through the door and said, Freddie, your death is standing before you. And he just went, ah! Just like that. And he continued on later, and he caught AIDS that night. And he said this in an interview. Yes, he said this in an interview while he didn't understand the warning. And, and maybe, the ghostly John Lennon didn't have, he had some understanding of what was happening, but not like enough to like lay out, hey, that's the boy, you're going to catch AIDS. No, it wasn't like that. He just said, your death is standing before you. Like, you just knew this boy is a representative of death or something for Freddie Mercury. Yeah. So George Harrison said, so what do we do? He said, well, we have to do a pinda ceremony and a shraddha. So a pinda, these are two different types of ceremonies. Well, one is like you cook prasadam and you feed the hungry, you feed the elderly, you feed the saintly, you feed the children, you feed the women you just feed everybody prasadam, and you make a prayer. All the credit, all the punya, all that credit card that we're talking about, let that be given to this person who is in this ghostly situation. That's why in Bhagavad Gītā, Arjuna was worried about traditions being stopped, because these traditions help the ancestors get their own good karma coming their way. And another one is you take prasadam, food that's been cooked with love and devotion, offered to God, and then you request the ghosts to come and eat it in a subtle way. And they did this ceremony where they request the ghost of John Lennon to come, and they said the whole place, like hairs started going up, and he started feeling like this creepy feeling, and it says that if you eat the food that has been offered to a ghost, it'll make you sick, but animals can eat it, and it's also considered seva by feeding the animals. And so immediately when they were doing this ceremony, then the dogs started barking at the door, and they gave the prasadam to the dogs. And then I'm really sidetracked today. I'm going through so many different stories, but then but you guys asked for it, so it's not my fault. And then shortly thereafter, he was given a $60,000 donation in an unrelated way.
You mean Jordan was?
Prithu Prabhu, who's arranged the whole thing in an unrelated way. But he thought this was the Grateful Dead, not the band, but the name of the band is from an old story where somebody did something on behalf of the ghost, and the ghost later on in turn found a way to reward that person. So that's the story of the ghost of John Lennon. Don't become a ghost, Chapu. Don't do it.
What do you think?
Yeah.
John was okay then after
Oh,
all of the...
Yeah, must be. You feed all the people in Vrindavan. Yeah, you're getting like it's like you won the lottery. Yeah, no ghostly sightings anymore. Yeah, and that big donation came in out of nowhere.
So John, what you're saying that George was secretly kind of like incognito staying in this ashram?
Yeah.
Ashram.
You find pictures of it on, just type in Google.
In 1996.
1996, George Harrison, Vrindavan. There's tons of pictures at Prabhupada Vani Ashram, which is a 5-minute walk from the Krishna Balaram temple.
3 months.
3 months. He asked him, how much money did you make in these 3 months? And he was like, 90 days, 90 million. It's like $1 million a day. Yes. Okay, so let's begin our practice. Hey, Chapu's here, and we have Mr. Chance. Why don't you guys give us a run through some of your verses? Chapu, you go up.
Thank you.
Okay, I will do my best. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Mulam Adashakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandam Siyasya Parnani Jastam Veda Savedavid Adaschurdvam Prasitastasya Shaka Guna Pravidam Vishaya Pravala Adaschamulani Anusantatani Karmanu Bandhine Manushaloke. Narupamasyeha tatopalabhyate nanto nachadhir nacha sampratishta ashvatamenam suvirudamulam asanga sastrena tritena chitva padam tatapadam tat parimargitavyam yasmingatana nivartante bhuyam tamevachadyam purusham prapade yatha praviti prashita purani. This is a tricky one for me. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha Dvandvai vimuktam sukha dukkha samjai gachantyamudam padamavyayam tat na tad vasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha jadgatva na nivartante taddama paramam mama and mamevam so Mamevam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manas
Mana and the
manasashtani indriyani prakriti
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 Tani
shtani karshati.
Harshati. Yes, yes. Nice, very nice. Very good, very good. Mr. Chance.
If you don't mind, maybe I could skip because my nose is running like a water faucet.
Okay, no
So I'd
problem.
probably have to stop a few times in the middle
Yeah,
of my
no problem,
verses.
no problem.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's a good time for us to begin our practice. So, does anybody remember what the word sharira means?
Body.
The body. And if we can just try to remember that avapnoti and utkramati means the same thing as grihitvaitani and samyati. Grihitva and samyati. Both griha, it sounds like grihasta, like somebody who holding on to like a house. So I don't know if there's some root relation there. But avapnoti and utkramati and grihitva and samyati. So if you can just remember, and it's the same order, getting and giving up, getting and giving up. So they're both in the same order. So if you even if you don't remember, oh, this word is that, this word is that, if you just remember the body gets and gives up, and then the next part is gets, gives up, air, fragrance, and source. So if you can, if you remember those, the meaning of those words, it helps. So those who are new, Kylie and David, there's so certain things that we do. We often try to act out the meanings of the words, like we do haptics, we do different things like urdvam, up, mula, roots, ada, down, shaka, branches, ashvatam, tree, prahur, it said, avyayam, eternal, yastam veda, one who knows this is the knower of Veda, sadashchurdvam, prashita tashashaka, there's a down and upward branches, guna pravida, that are nourished by the gunas, and vishaya prabha, the objects of the senses are the twigs. So we act out, we do, one of the things that we do is we act out the different words to kind of lock in the meanings, because all the vocabulary really helps us. And another thing that we don't really focus too much on is rote memorization of the translation. We find often Prabhupada would recite the Sanskrit, many acharyas and they recite the Sanskrit, and they would rephrase, they would just phrase it in just whatever, however casually it came out. Because there's so many gems to be mined out of the Sanskrit. Like the Acharyas will take one word and show how there's various different significances to that word in different angles, which you can't really get from the English. And it's nice to not have two separate things, that you have this, this stuff, this weird language that you're just blah, 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 blah saying. And then there's a second thing that you're memorizing and you're not really connecting the two. So if you don't, we're not looking for a type of Sanskrit proficiency that you can translate verses, but rather that because you're so much familiar with the words and the verses that you're studying, that you remember the translation. And that's often not too hard with like Bhagavad Gītā verse, many Bhagavad Gītā verses. If you know if you know all the words, the translation's kind of obvious. Sometimes when you have like Bhagavatam verses or Upanishad verses, without knowing grammar, it's like it's hard to make sense of but verse like this, it's not too hard to see what's being said there. Or the next verse, it says ears, eyes, sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of smell, adhishtaya, being situated mana in the mind. It's like it's not too hard to have a clear remembrance of what the translation's about. And then you also build your vocabulary, because for example, in two more verses, on verse 10, you're going to have again this utkramati is going to come up. That word's going to come up again. Vayu, that word wind, is probably going to be found somewhere else. Sharira, the body, that will probably be found somewhere else. It's in a song that is often sung before prasadam. Sharira vijaja jodinde tayaka. Jiva, these different words, you're just going to come across. Jiva, the soul, loke, worlds, mana, mind. The word bhasyate, which was in verse 6, we're going to come across it again in verse 12. Surya, these words, probably people remember Surya, the sun. So our vocabulary gradually grows, and therefore it actually becomes a little easier as you go on. And it also becomes easier, David and Kylie, one of the reasons why doing it all together in a chapter is the only way you really are able to not forget these verses over a long time is if you use them. Now, if you have a lot of random verses that don't kind of flow in a natural, meaningful way, you're probably not going to use them unless you're, first of all, you would need to be a person who's giving a class on the Bhagavad Gītā regularly. And even if you were, you also need to be like, have the intelligence to just pull all these things together. But guess what? Any fool can sing a song. So the chapter is, it's from 2 to like and up to maybe 5 minutes or 6 minutes, but it can be done in even less than 2 minutes. You can recite the whole chapter 15. So it's the lyrics for a 2 to 5 minute song. So they all, as you saw Chapu saying it, they all kind of lead to the next one, to the next one. Chapu, how is that verse 1? Is that any difficulty?
I mean, right now, for me?
Yeah. No, see, so verse 1, verse 7, it's like, oh, that one's a challenge
Yeah.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
But verse 1 is like, it's locked down, because you just keep on building up on it. And so we do this work. We try to see the verse in so many different angles, and whatever we can find, learn about that verse. But we can, it grows and grows and grows. And most of the time, the classes, I'm not doing so much talking. We're doing more practicing. But since we had some new folks, I just wanted to share some of those things with you, if that's okay. All right. So how about we do a little bit practice together? Let's, instead of doing the breakout rooms, let's do it all together. You can have it on mute if you like, it doesn't matter, but I'll recite it and then you repeat after me. Shariram yat avapnoti yachchapi utkramatishvaraha grihit tvetani samyati vayur gandan ivashayat Ishvar. Does anybody remember what Ishvar means? Mr. Matthew or Chance?
Is that controller?
Controller. And so in this verse, it means the soul. But yeah, there's little controllers, and then there's a big controller. There's which is called the Parameshwar, the supreme controller. Shariram yat avapnoti yachchapi utkramatishvaraha grihit tvetani samyati vayur gandan ivashayat. So here's some Sanskrit pointers for those who are coming in. The what is the, I think it's called the Anusvarga. You see that dot on the H? Who can, Mr. Chance, or who can tell what, when do we say it? When do we verbalize that aha or ihi or uhu, that extension of the vowel?
Yes, I'll go.
Yes.
Yeah, so we exaggerate the previous vowel on the H only on the second and fourth lines, as that is the ending of technically the first and second line of a Sanskrit verse.
Yes. So everybody got that? Mr. David, you got that? Kylie, got that? Okay, so sometimes you find it in the verse. It's not used, but it's used at the end of the second and fourth line. And most of these verses are all going to be 32 syllables. If that may help somebody try to figure out the melody. Shariram yadavapnoti yachchapi utkramatishvaraha grihit tvetani samyati vayur gandani vashayat. And again, another pronunciation is, from what I've seen, when you put the A and the E together, it's written out as a AI. So like cha and ava becomes cheva. The grihit tvetani, not twaitani, but tvetani, because it's an A and an E together. Grihit tvetani, like chaitanya. It's not chaitanya, it's chaitanya. It's a cha and an ava together becomes cheva. That makes sense? And one last thing for those who are trying to figure out how to do Sanskrit words. I mentioned, everybody's heard me say this before, that one of the tendencies in English, how we pronounce words, that doesn't exactly work in other languages. Who remembers what's one of the tendencies? Mr. Chance? We overemphasize what in English?
The second, oh no, what's the word?
Syllable.
Yeah, so yeah, the second
yeah.
syllable of a word.
So yeah, if we're conscious of things that are unnecessarily done in English when speaking other languages, then we can like, oh, okay, that's not how, then we can just try to read it without falling into that. So one example, okay, so words like that we're quite familiar with, we don't say Radhika, we say Radhika. Yes, because Radhika sounds like, I don't know. But we may say other words like putana, tulasi. We say it's just a natural way of English of just putting that overemphasis there on the second. So when we're conscious and we do that, then it helps us like try to figure out with how to avoid that. And I'm no expert. I just been doing this for a while. So
Can I ask one question that is a little off
Yes.
topic, but it's a pronunciation question?
go for it.
Do you say Arjuna or Arjuna?
Arjuna. I don't know. I thought you were gonna ask if I take off the A at the end, but I was like, no, I don't know. Arjuna or Arjuna. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, our American ears aren't like, they're a little handicapped. They're not so adept at all this stuff. Like you start learning Sanskrit and you're like, wait, there's 4 N's, and then you're like, what's the difference? And the person says, and they're like, wait, that's all the same. They're like, no, you didn't hear the difference. You're like, no, I didn't hear the difference. All right. Somebody else want to do a reading of it?
Sure, I'll go.
All right.
Shariram yadavapnoti yachapi utkramashtishvaraha vihitvani samyati vayorgandhani vashayat.
Very good. Very good. So one syllable there. Grihit tani.
Wait, thank you.
Grihit. Like sometimes it's easier to like just picture 2 E's there. Grihit tani samyati. Actually, doing this class, I realized one of the verses, there's a word which means does not return. You guys remember what that word was? Nivartante and nivartanti. And one verse I was saying nivartante, but it's actually written nivartanti. And I wasn't realizing that because I was saying it how it's written in the other verse, which was like 2 verses later. Yeah, nivartante in verse 6 and nivartanti in verse 4. Yeah. So yeah, even though I had this memorized like years ago, like it's sometimes you realize, oh, I didn't, I messed that one up long time ago. So it's nice to do it with all of you. Grihit tvetani samyati. Grihit tvetani samyati. Some of you, since we did a lot of like just digging into the verse itself and not too much practice, Kylie and David, you can try to reach out to Chance and Chapu and others on Discord and practice together with them, because where you just practice saying it over and over, back and forth, and then taking off some of the training wheels where, okay, let me try to do the first line without looking at it. Let me try to do first and second line, or maybe let me jump to the third line. Let me try to do that third and fourth line. You don't have to always start from the top, but you can try in the middle. Let me see if I can get that memorized. And You know, it's the brain. It's a muscle. It's you can go from verse 1. So Chapi's ready to help everybody from verse 1 on, and as you see, she knows it well. She knows it well.
Prabhuji, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Carlos. We haven't heard much. There, welcome. Where
Thank you.
where you coming in from?
Canada.
Canada. You got the Canadian email.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, with the email, I appreciate that you actually send the voice clip of the verse because it
Okay,
actually
yeah.
helps. My question was this shloka, the word that you were just talking about, Gerhit Twa. So I hear that there's two T's, or am I mistaken?
Grihit, twa, grihit, twa. That's a hard one too.
I'm listening to like two T's, but maybe you can correct.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that too. Yeah, grihit. Let's look at grihitva, etani. That's one. Sometimes the easiest way is to stop looking at the whole, like the double words, and look at the separated words, and try to just say, because they're just basically said together. It's not really much more than that. Grihitva tani. Grihitva tani. So yeah, just try to say those two words together, and then yeah, that's a way to.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, because I can't say it without trying to do two T's there. Would you guys like to hear my Atlantis verse story? You want another story? Okay, I got two Atlantis stories. Not too long, but they're okay. So one of them is not in Atlanta, but it involves Atlanta. It's on the streets of Times Square as a monk. I'm walking down the street and I have a stack of books. I've got The Science of Civilization, Journey of Self-Discovery, some Bhagavad Gītā softbound in my bag. I have books, Srila Prabhupada's books, saffron robes, and it's New York City, like trying to it's the opposite of Dallas, Texas. Like Dallas, I can just go from like my porch and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And the person will look like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Like, but to stop a New Yorker is like, to get their attention is like stopping a train. And New Yorkers get a bad rap. They're actually, because I was a monk selling books in Seattle, all over places, and New Yorkers are nicer than the people in Seattle. But they were like, it's like a train. They're on a move, so it was not an easy task. So I see this lady walking up, and in my mind's going, okay, what do I say? How do I get this person's attention? And I see this bus pass by, and the bus says Atlantic City. So I turn to the lady, I say, "Miss, are you from Atlanta?" Which is, they're not the same thing. I said, "Miss, are you from Atlanta?" And she just stops, and she's quite surprised. And she says, "Yes, what's going on here?" I said, "We're monks, and we're distributing books about how we're not this body, how that we're the soul within the body." How you doing, George? How we're the soul within the body, and the soul can only be satisfied when it connects to the Supreme Soul. Like like New York City, it's like I didn't even fluff it up. I was like, just straight to the point. This is meditation, yoga. No, this is about, you're not the body, the soul. Like, I'm just like, and then that's when she was really surprised. She put her hands on her head. She said, "Oh my God, you don't even know what happened. Oh my God, you don't even know. You don't, oh my God." I said, "Miss, what's going on?" She said, "Well, I've been feeling a lot of anxiety. I work as a model, and I've been feeling very insecure about my body. So I was walking down the street, and I was praying to God. And I say, God, I feel so insecure about my body. I just want to go home, back to Atlanta." And then I said, "Miss, are you from Atlanta?" And then what I follow up with that, "You're not the body." And she said, "I'll take 2 of those books." And she got 2 books. Okay, Atlanta story number 2.
If I may pop in real quick, Prabhuji.
Yes.
It's a Krishna miracle.
Krishna.
Krishna miracle.
Krishna. Okay, so this is Atlantis story number 2. Me and my friend Jai Gopal, we're at Little 5 Points. So Kylie, you know this. Is there still a grocery store called Savananda's? There's a grocery store in Atlanta called Savananda, the bliss of service. A health food store, but it's got this Sanskrit name. So I'm in there, I'm with my robes, my friend, he's in his robes. And we go, we're buying some snacks or whatever we're buying. And the lady looks at us and she says, "Hey, you guys were in my dream." And we're like people dressed like us, like just like, yeah, you guys were in my dream. And it was kind of like we're very clear if it was like us specifically are people who look like, dressed as Hare Krishna monks in robes. And I was like, what happened in the dream? And she said, we were sitting together eating yellow pudding cake, and you were telling me that I was about to leave. And I turned to my friend and I was like, dude, is she gonna die? It's like, what's going on here? And I turned to her and I said, Miss, that's your guardian angel telling you that you should come to the Govardhan Puja festival tomorrow at the temple, down the street, not too far away. And so the next day I saw her and she was dancing around the festival, just having a great time. And I don't know if any of you have been to Govardhan Puja, but Govardhan Puja is a festival where they make a mountain made out of sweets. My wife and I organized here in Dallas. We decided we're going to outdo all the temples. And we did a 16-foot chocolate cake mountain with like lakes and rivers of pudding and stuff. And I have some really cool pictures I could show you. But in Atlanta, they made this mountain out of halava, but it was saffron halava, which basically is yellow pudding cake. And she said, "This is the stuff. This is the stuff." She's pointing to it. But the miracle doesn't end there. So she sat with us, and we're just kind of, sit with her and just ask how she's doing. And she said, being here, I have a profound memory of a dream that I've had this dream repeatedly throughout my life. And it's a little black boy, and he's showing me a book. On the cover of the book is Jesus. On the back of the book is Muhammad. And she said, there's somebody in the middle of the book. I never knew who he was. And she points to Krishna on the altar. And she says, now I know who he is. Jai. And so we were monks. We left the next day. She made friends that actually worked with her at the grocery store at the temple. She found out, you're regular at this temple. So she made some connections, people that she actually even worked with at her job. And we left the next day. So we didn't know what happened, where her story led to, but we don't know if she became a pure devotee and died or something. No idea. But we really, my mind, I think, went to that because one teacher of mine told me that there was a guy who was coming to the temple kind of regularly in India, and he was missing for a couple of weeks, and they're, where'd he go? And then they got a call from the hospital saying, oh, he's dying. And they said, Mr. Pritu, you have to come. I wrote George. He said, you have to come. This man is dying. And then they came, and when they got to the hospital people told him that the guy already died, because they came with the kirtan and everything. And they told him, you can go. And they said, no, let us do kirtan. And this story is a little fantastic, but So they did kirtan. They say the guy said something. He said, from now on, it's Krishna all the way. And then he left. But they found out that, okay, he was coming. Sorry, I missed one point of the story, is that he was coming to temple like as a casual person, and then he became like some crazy addict. Like he was chanting, like he would run around the temple, Hare Krishna, like just walking around the temple, like around the block, just chanting, and like he just got super into it, and then he disappeared. And then they're like wondering what happened to that guy. He just like he was on fire, and then he disappeared. And then that's what. So now on. So we're like, did this lady end up like him? Like that guy? We have no idea. We were young monks, and we heard some young ladies in the temple saying, "Oh, the monks are nice. Let's cook for them so they'll stay." And we're like, "No, we'll never get married." So we took off the next day. So now I got 3 kids. Well, thank you. This is more storytelling session, and we did get into the verse a bit. Any other reflections? Thank you, David. Thank you. So yeah, we had some really nice verses. Does anybody remember the acronym? Can share. Home, yes, HOME. This world is not our home. Verses 1 through 6. It's a hotel. Can't stay here, and somebody else owns it. O is for that samsara wheel that over and over and on and again. That's what we're discussing right now. M is for maintainer, and E is for essence. That there's soul, there's Krishna. There are different beings, and the relationship is loving service. This chapter is very useful because these are basic points to introduce bhakti to people. You know, reincarnation is like one of the first basic points, but even before that, just this aspect of this world is kind of a not nice place. It's not really your home. It's even like kind of pre-reincarnation level. You know, reincarnation is like where usually that's the best place to talk about, to begin the conversation. It's something practical. You're not really asking you to believe in anything. That's I would suggest anybody who wants to share anything with any other people, don't ask them to believe anything. You know, give them something that, you know, okay, it is a practical fact that the body I have today, the body I had when I was 7, all those cells have died. They're not here anymore. But I'm here because I'm not that body. So it's a practical thing that a person can understand through a little bit of realization. Oh, thank you, Chap, was sharing it there. Maintainer, yeah, he's taking care of, and it says body, mind, and soul. He talks about how he's giving water and digestion and all these things that are working. Even the mind, somebody mentioned remembrance and forgetfulness. I think it was Seba who mentioned that. Remembrance and forgetfulness. So he even supplies that, and that's not you. You're not God, and that's the last verses. So we'll find in the next verse here. Yeah, he talks about you know, how we're getting another body. In the next verse, how this subject, even the subject for reincarnation, is very hard to understand. But if you have some knowledge, if you can come across some spiritual knowledge, it can be understood. And it does take some spiritual credit, as it's mentioned in verse 11. It's not just a material thing. It takes, you know, there has to be some sincerity there. So this is a little bit, you know, we went, I think, maybe 10 minutes over, or we kind of started a little, maybe 15 minutes over our normal time. But it was a pleasure having all you guys. Anything else? Anybody want to share? Avinash, let's see your face, Avinash. You haven't. You're Batman with us.
Sorry, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. There you go. Avinash actually lives here in Dallas, and he has chapter 7, chapter 9, chapter 10 memorized. Is that correct?
Yeah, Prabhuji. Chapter 9, 10, 12.
Yeah, see. Can be done. And yeah, after we finish this thing, we can figure out how we can maybe, once we finish all 20 verses. There's 20 verses in the chapter. So that's what another point of learning verses is start with something easy, like chapter 15, it's easy. Chapter 9, it's easy in the sense that the verses are quite popular. Chapter 7 also, it's like chapter 9, but it's only 20 something. It's like, no, it's 30 verses. And things that you may use in some kind of dialogue. And that way it becomes useful for you. And even if you don't use it in a dialogue, use it as a meditation, engage it in some kind of activity that you do. Go on a walk, chant these. You do, say some of you offer incense at home to a picture of Krishna. Chant the verses while you offer it. You know, you offer food, or I don't know, something that if you got 20 verses, find something that takes you 5 minutes to do, and then add the verses to that 5 minutes. We take a 5-minute walk every day or something, and it becomes a nice meditation. And so I was thinking, yeah, after we finish all 20 verses, maybe we can just keep on practicing until we get strong, and then we can figure out if we want to do something else after that. If we want to do another chapter, maybe we can work on learning some of the songs that are often sung.
Chapu helped me with some memorization.
Ooh,
and
there you go.
we got a little shout out from Kastuba.
Oh, really? Kastuba?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then Clayton has helped me, and it's been awesome.
Nice, yeah.
He helped me get 3 down. So now I'll be like walking around at my school that I work at, like Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Yeah.
Kids are like, what is wrong with Mr. Benz? What is he doing?
What do you
He's
teach?
weird. I teach a elementary school. I teach at a Montessori elementary school, special education.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, there's a verse. The next verse is kind of good for kids.
It is?
Shrutram chakshus pashanam cha rasanam grahanam eva cha.
Sweet.
Shrutram chakshus
Ready.
pashanam cha. It's eyes, ears, sense of touch.
Oh,
They
okay.
might like that one if it's
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. There's a lot of schools that teach Sanskrit to their kids, like public schools in like England and such.
If I get good enough, I'll offer it after school.
Yeah.
You never know.
All right. Cool. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll stop here. Thank you all so much. It was fun. And yeah, let's keep on going. And I think we're at least halfway, because although we're in verse 8, those verses 2 and through 5 were larger verses, more syllables, and even the topic was a little bit more abstract. That's another point. Abstract verses are a little harder to memorize, so just be aware of that. So when you come across, don't become discouraged, because the less abstract verses will be easier to memorize, and everything just builds upon the next thing, so it becomes a little easier and easier as we go on. And all these words will be helpful. You're going to start seeing these words everywhere. Chakshush, eyes. Jnana chakshush. You start seeing with the eyes of knowledge. Okay. Well, Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna.